Nathan Cross woke to three things: alarm klaxons screaming, the acrid smell of burning insulation, and the horrible grinding sound of his cargo transport carving through ice like a knife through flesh. His harness dug into his chest as the ship bucked, and then everything stopped with a crunch that rattled his teeth. Emergency protocols flooded his neural implant: catastrophic engine failure, uncontrolled descent, emergency landing on Helvorn 4. The ice moon, barely charted, completely uninhabited, average surface temperature, -140 degrees Celsius. Nathan released his harness with numb fingers and stumbled toward the emergency exit. The cargo bay was destroyed, torn open like paper, and wind hit him like a physical blow. Not wind, knives made of frozen air that cut through his flight suit and found every exposed inch of skin. His emergency beacon activated automatically, and Nathan's implant helpfully informed him that rescue would arrive in approximately 96 hours, weather permitting. The weather, his sensors added, was about to get considerably worse. Storm front approaching. Estimated duration, 100 hours. Nathan was still processing this when he saw her, stumbling through the wind from the direction of another crash site half a kilometer away. Tall, built solid, with those distinctive long ears that identified her as Kairani. He recognized her from the station, a salvage operator whose ship had been docked beside his. Her name was Lyra, and she looked about as happy to see him as he was to be freezing to death on an ice moon. "Human," she shouted over the wind, her long ears pinned flat against her skull. "Your ship functional." "Extremely not functional," Nathan called back, his teeth already chattering. "Yours, equally destroyed." Lyra pulled an emergency kit from her suit. "I have one shelter. Standard survival rating. It will maintain above freezing temperatures during the storm." Her eyes assessed him clinically. "Barely above freezing. You will not survive alone." Nathan wanted to argue, but his fingers were going numb and his core temperature was already dropping. "Shelter sounds great," he managed. Lyra's ears twitched in what might have been approval or resignation. "Follow, quickly. Storm arrives in 30 minutes. The emergency shelter deployed in a shallow depression between ice formations that provided minimal wind protection. It was small, designed for one large being or two smaller ones, and the thermal cell that powered it would last 4 days if they were careful. Lyra worked with brutal efficiency while Nathan tried to help with hands that wouldn't cooperate. His survival suit had torn during the crash, and heat was leaking out faster than his body could generate it. Lyra noticed. Of course she noticed. "Your suit is compromised. Remove it." "What?" "Inside the shelter now, before you lose more body heat." She finished securing the shelter's seals and gestured impatiently. "Human thermoregulation is inadequate for this environment. Your species generates heat poorly and loses it quickly." Nathan crawled inside and Lyra followed, sealing the entrance behind her. The shelter's interior was cramped, barely large enough for both of them. The thermal cell hummed to life, and Nathan felt temperature rise from certain death to merely dangerously cold. "Your core temperature is already too low," Lyra said, her long ears swiveling toward him like sensors. "The shelter will maintain minimal warmth, but not sufficient for human survival over extended duration." She paused, and something in her expression shifted. "We must share body heat, or you will die of hypothermia before rescue arrives." Nathan understood what she was suggesting and hated how much sense it made. "That's practical." "It is survival," Lyra agreed. "There is no other option. Remove your damaged suit. I will share thermal mass." Nathan stripped off his torn flight suit with clumsy fingers while Lyra arranged their emergency blankets. When she pulled him against her, it was purely functional. Her body heat bleeding into his frozen core, her arms positioned to maximize heat transfer. She was warmer than any human, her Kairani biology designed for harsher worlds than Earth. "Sleep," Lyra commanded. "I will monitor your temperature. If you begin shivering again, I will adjust position." Outside, the storm hit with a roar that shook their tiny shelter. Nathan pressed against Lyra's warmth and tried not to think about how intimate survival felt, how her breath was warm against his hair, how dependent he was on someone he'd barely spoken to before today. "Thank you," he whispered. Lyra's ears twitched. "Thank me when we survive. Sleep, human." Nathan slept and didn't freeze. Hour 36 of the storm, and Nathan had learned more about Chirani biology than he'd ever expected. They generated heat efficiently, needed only 4 hours of sleep per cycle, and Lyra's long ears could detect temperature variations by fractions of a degree. She monitored him constantly, adjusting their position when his fingers got too cold, rationing the thermal cell's power with mathematical precision. They talked to pass the time. There wasn't much else to do in the cramped darkness while the storm raged. 12 years as salvage operator, Lyra said when Nathan asked about her work. Solo for the last 3, I had a crew before. An accident, I survived, they did not. Her ears flattened briefly. Solo work is simpler, no complications. I get that, Nathan said. I haul cargo for the same reason. Simple, solitary, no complications. He shifted slightly, and Lyra adjusted to keep optimal heat contact. Had a relationship end badly on Mars, decided solitary was safer. Complications, Lyra repeated, and there was something like amusement in her voice. Like being stranded with an alien woman who must sleep pressed against you for mutual survival? Nathan laughed despite the cold. Yeah, exactly like that. He paused. Though technically I think this is more you're keeping me alive than mutual survival. I'm pretty useless here. Incorrect. Lyra's arms tightened fractionally. You maintain consciousness and communicate coherently. This allows me to monitor your condition accurately. You also generate some heat, minimal though it is. And, her ears performed a complex movement. Conversation prevents circular thinking about circumstances beyond our control. So I'm useful as a thermometer and distraction. Adequate uses for a human in survival conditions. I'll put that on my resume. Adequate thermometer in emergencies. Lyra made a sound that might have been Chirani laughter. Outside, the wind screamed like something dying. Inside their tiny shelter, Nathan listened to Lyra's steady breathing and felt her warmth keeping hypothermia at bay, and thought about vulnerability and dependence and the strange intimacy of trusting someone with your life. Hour 58, and Nathan woke to find Lyra's long ears pressed flat against her skull, her body tensed. What's wrong? Thermal cell efficiency declining faster than calculated. Storm is colder than initial readings suggested. Her voice was calm, but Nathan had learned to read her ears. We must conserve power. I am reducing shelter temperature to minimal safe threshold. How minimal? For Chirani, comfortable. For human. She didn't finish. For human, I'm going to need to get a lot closer to you, aren't I? Yes. So Nathan pressed against her completely, no space left between them, her arms wrapped around him, and her body heat the only thing standing between him and the cold trying to kill him. It should have been awkward. Instead, it felt like trust made physical, her keeping him alive with nothing but her warmth and vigilance. Lyra, yes. If we die here, I want you to know you're a terrible blanket, way too bony. Her ears flicked upward in surprise, then relaxed in what he'd learned was amusement. You are terrible at generating heat, like embracing a poorly insulated ice cube. Match made in heaven. Heaven is a human concept. Chirani have no equivalent. Then a match made in a freezing hell on an ice moon. More accurate, Lyra agreed and held him closer. The storm broke on hour 73. Nathan woke to silence, not complete silence, but the absence of howling wind, and realized he could see daylight through the shelter's translucent panels. Lyra was already awake, her long ears swiveling as she monitored something. Rescue beacon has been transmitting continuously. Storm has cleared. Search vessel should arrive within 6 hours. Nathan sat up slowly, his body stiff from days of immobility. We made it. Survival was probable if parameters remained stable. Lyra began packing their emergency supplies with the same efficiency she did everything. Your core temperature remained adequate throughout. Human physiology is more resilient than expected. Only because you kept me alive. Nathan pulled on his repaired flight suit. Lyra had patched it with emergency sealant during one of his sleep cycles. I would have died that first night without you. Lyra's ears performed a complex movement he couldn't interpret. Pragmatic cooperation. You would have done the same. Maybe, but you did do it, thank you. The rescue ship arrived 5 hours later, right on schedule. They were examined, cleared, and shuttled back to Gateway Station 7 for full medical evaluation. Nathan sat through debriefing questions about the crash, answered everything on autopilot, and thought about Lyra's warmth in the darkness, the sound of her breathing, the way her ears twitched when she was concerned about his temperature. When he was finally released, he found Lyra waiting outside the debriefing area. She looked cleaner now, her salvage operator gear replaced with station casual wear, but her long ears still tracked him with that same focused attention. "You survived," she said. "We survived," Nathan corrected. "Because you knew exactly what to do, I would have frozen to death alone. Human stubbornness may have contributed. You complained less than expected for someone being kept alive by alien body heat." High praise. Nathan hesitated. "Can I buy you coffee? Or whatever Kairani drink that passes for coffee? To say thank you for not letting me die on an ice moon?" Lyra tilted her head, her ears forward in what he'd learned meant interest. "Coffee is acceptable, though I should note that Kairani do not typically form attachments to beings we have shared survival conditions with. It is considered pragmatic circumstance, not meaningful connection." "Typically," Nathan repeated. "Usually," Lyra agreed. "But you are persistent, and I find I am curious about whether human coffee is as terrible as human thermoregulation." They found a station cafe that served beverages for a dozen different species. Lyra ordered something that looked like coffee but smelled like machine oil. Nathan ordered actual coffee and watched her take a sip and make a face. "Worse than imagined," she pronounced. "You're welcome." Nathan leaned back in his chair. "So, what now? You get new salvage equipment, I file insurance claims, we go back to our solitary, uncomplicated lives?" Lyra's ears twitched. That would be logical. Very logical. Pragmatic. Extremely pragmatic. They looked at each other across the table. Outside the cafe window, Gateway Station 7 bustled with life, ships docking, beings of 100 species going about their business, the galaxy turning indifferent to one human and one Kairani who'd survived a frozen moon together. "However," Lyra said slowly, "I find that 3 days of keeping a human alive has made me invested in continued survival verification. It would be inefficient to not occasionally confirm you are maintaining adequate core temperature." Nathan smiled. "Very inefficient, and I should probably check that you're not stranded on any more ice moons. Professional courtesy." "Professional courtesy," Lyra agreed, her ears relaxing in amusement. "We should exchange contact information for professional purposes." "Absolutely professional." They exchanged details, and Nathan realized what he was feeling wasn't attraction exactly, or not just attraction. It was connection forged in absolute vulnerability, in trusting someone to keep you alive when you couldn't do it yourself, in the quiet intimacy of shared warmth in brutal cold. When they parted ways hours later, Lyra to arrange new equipment, Nathan to deal with his destroyed ship, Nathan touched her arm briefly. "Thank you for everything." Lyra's long ears performed that complex movement again, and Nathan thought he might finally understand it. Survival is better accomplished together, human, even for those of us who prefer solitary work. "Nathan, my name is Nathan." "Nathan," Lyra repeated, like she was testing the sound. "I am Lyra, though you knew this." "I did, but it feels different now." "Yes," Lyra agreed quietly. "It does." Nathan watched her walk away through the station crowd and thought about a frozen moon that tried to kill them, about sleeping pressed against an alien woman's warmth because the alternative was death, about how survival created bonds that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with trust. His comm pinged 3 hours later.